Venkateshwaran Gopala, would you like to actually chant the Dhyana Shloka?
Yes, madam. Namaskaram.
Yeah. Namaskaram.
Partaya pratiboditam bhagavata Narayanena swayam Vyasena gratitam puranam munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvam anusandadhami Bhagavad-gita Bhavadveshini Namostute Vyasa Buddhe Pullara Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Mrutaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dhogda Gopala Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gita Mritam Mahate Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum Bhishmadrona Tata Jayadratha Jala Gandharati Lotpala Shalyagrahavati Krupena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashvattama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavai Rananadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Para Sharyavachas Sarojamamalam Gitardhagandotkatam Jnanakhyanakakesaram Harikata Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatpadairaharaha Pepiyamanam Muda Bhuyad Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradvamsina Shreyase Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamaham vande paramananda madhavam yam brahma karunendra rudra marutastum vanti divyaistavaihi vedais sanga padakramopanishadaihi gayanti yamga samaga dhyanavastita tadgatena manasa Pashyanti yoginah yasyantam na vidussura suragana devaya tasmai namaha. Namaskaram.
Dhanyavada. Sadashiva-samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Om Param Varishtham Brahmishtham Paramanandarupinam Paramarthanandayatim Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. These two verses are the most important verses of the 14th chapter that we are actually currently doing, which we entered into in the last class, the 11th verse. This is actually dealing with the last lap of the spiritual journey. So before coming to the last lap, a spiritual seeker has to prepare himself or herself by gradually changing the proportion of the three gunas. Right? All the three gunas are very important. Tamo guna, Rajo guna, and Sattva guna. And Tamo guna and Rajo guna have to be utilized appropriately. And initially, you will have to utilize more of it. And then by practicing Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, gradually the Sattva guna has to be made predominant in any spiritual seeker. Because the last lap of one's spiritual journey is in the form of Jnana Yoga. And Jnana Yoga alone gives liberation directly. Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga are very important, but they cannot give liberation directly. They can only improve the Sattva Guna and they can make a person fit for Jnana Yoga. And since Jnana Yoga alone gives liberation directly, the last step of the journey has to be Jnana Yoga. And for that, Sattva Guna is important. And because Sattva Guna only promotes Jnanam. And therefore, we have to design our sadhanas in such a way that by practicing karma and upasana, we have to make ourselves Sattva Guna Pradhana and get ready for Jnana Yoga, through which I do a self-inquiry. So what is the Sattva Guna based Jnana Yoga or self-inquiry? That is summed up in these two verses, which we were doing in the last class. We started the 11th verse, right? So we should remember the background for Jnana Yoga, right? And we actually saw this in the previous chapter also, right? And last class also I mentioned, every individual is a mixture of Purusha and Prakriti, okay? And the body mind sense complex is made up of Prakriti or matter, and this body mind complex does not have consciousness of its own. It becomes sentient by borrowing consciousness, exactly like the way moon becomes bright by borrowing light from the Surya. So the body mind sense complex is exactly like the moon, and it borrows consciousness from Purusha and becomes sentient. And this sentient package, which is consisting of the body mind sense organs with the borrowed consciousness, is given a technical name Ahankara. So thus everybody has got Ahankara. We must remember, in the Vedantic context, this is the Ahankara and not arrogance, which we generally use for we refer as Ahankara, right? We must remember, Ahankara is the material component of the individual with the borrowed consciousness. And in addition to the Prakriti, which is now renamed Ahankara, right? The Prakriti, we must remember this, that the Prakriti alone has been renamed as Ahankara. And in addition to this Prakriti, which is there in Ahankara, we must remember that a part, or I should say, we should not use the word part, Purusha or Kshetrajna also blesses. We saw all this in the previous chapter. So Prakriti is the matter part, Purusha is the consciousness part, right? Consciousness aspect. So Prakriti along with Purusha is referred to as Ahankara. Why? Because without the Purusha blessing, you will not get a sentient being at all. Okay. So that is the mixture which we refer to as Ahankara, right? So thus every one of us is a mixture basically of, we can say, Ahankara and Atma, right? So Karma Yoga has helped in refining the ahankara, right? It is not helping us refine the Atma. Atma is, we have studied, right? Asangaha, nirvikaraha, it doesn't change, right? It is changeless, it is eternal. So ahankara alone, right, is what is getting refined through Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, right? So, and that is the Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga are the ones which are going to make it Sattva Guna Pradhana, thus helping the Ahankara get ready for a Jnana Yoga journey, right? And in Jnana Yoga, our aim is shifting the identity from Ahankara to Atma. And for this, you must remember this very nice example that I mentioned, I think 2 classes earlier also. Chinmayananda Swamiji gives the example of the pole vaulter. So obviously when he is jumping 6 feet, right, he brings the pole from a far away distance and then he pitches it and then he jumps, right? But imagine, suppose he is at the, this is just an imagination, suppose he is at the top going to jump and he says, no, I must have gratitude towards this pole because this pole only helped me get to this height. So I will not let go of the pole. He will lose the Olympic gold or whatever it is, right? So at the appropriate time, the pole vaulter gives up on the pole and jumps to the other side. So we must remember that similarly, if we do not want to lose the gold medal called moksha, we must let go of the Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, we must let go of the Jagat, the Ishvara, all the triads and be able to jump and claim that I am the higher nature Atma, right? Very, very important, right? So thus using the Ahankara, do the Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, etc., right? But at Jnana Yoga level, claim that you are the Atma, right? Ahankara is only an instrument. It is only a costume which I use temporarily. Okay. So I am not the Ahankara with Atma, right? I am not the Ahankara, but I am not the Ahankara with Atma, but I am actually the Atma with Ahankara, right? So Ahankara is incidental and my original nature is Atma, right? So this is like the castling of the chess, exactly like the castling of the chess, right? Very, very important aspect here, right? So I am the Atma with an incidental Ahankara as a temporary costume, right? So the definition of Ahankara is, it is the body mind sense complex with borrowed Chidabhasa. If you remember Chidabhasa, that is a term used to refer to reflected consciousness, right? So therefore, even though Ahankara is very attractive, we have to shift from Ahankara to Atma. We should know the limitations of Ahankara and we should also know that identifying with Ahankara is the cause for all the problems or samsara, right? Ahankara as a tool is wonderful, but Ahankara as an object, right, of identification will make the life terrible. If we identify with the Ahankara, we are bound to have problems, right? So as Ahankara, I am going to be always limited because body and mind is limited. Sense organs are extremely limited, right? And as we grow old, lot of parts also start creating problems. So the more we identify with Ahankara, the more limited we are going to feel, right? As we grow older. And also what happens as the children, the grandchildren grow, right? They have their own ways of dealing with things, working, etc. And we have a lot of expectations. So if we have a strong attachment towards Ahankara, we would want everybody to behave exactly the way that we want them to behave. And then disappointment only hits. Therefore, from early on, if we are able to detach ourselves from the Ahankara slowly over a period of time, it helps us practically in solving a lot or addressing a lot of practical difficulties that we may have as our family, relationship, everything becomes larger and larger, right? So that is why it becomes important for us to move towards the Atma and claim the Atma. From another angle, if you study this Ahankara, very interesting. Ahankara has got three personalities: Karta, Bhokta and Jnata. Karta means Karta means doer, right? Bhokta means enjoyer or experiencer, and Jnata means knower. These are the three aspects of an Ahankara. In all these three personalities, right, I'm going to be continuously dissatisfied. Why? As a Karta, I want to do many things, right? I have done so many things, but I always have a long list of things that I have not done, right? So I always constantly feel that I have a huge list which is unfinished, right? So that is as a Karta. As a Bhokta also, I have experienced so many things, but in this world there are so many things that I have not experienced. So always I feel that there is a huge list of unexperienced objects, relatives, places, whatever it is, the world, right? And Jnata, so many subjects are there, so many. In fact, in one of the Upanishads, I think Chandogya Upanishad, Narada says, I have studied so many sciences. He will list all the entire list of sciences, and then he will say, I don't have the Purnatvam, and then the Guru, Sanat Kumara in this case, starts the teaching, right? So how much ever I know, I will always have something which I do not know, right? I might do MA, MBA, PhD, whatever, double doctorate, triple doctorate, there will still be apurnatvam. So as Karta, as Bhokta and as Jnata, I can have apurnatvam at all times, right? So that is why I've in fact mentioned this even earlier in in Avani Avattam, the Mahasankalpam as we call it, right? We specifically say Anadi Avidya Vasanaya Pashu Pakshi Mrigadi Yonishu Anekada Punah Punah Janitva Kenapi Punya Karma Visheshena. Kenapi, little bit of Punya Karma was there. Idanim Tana Manushye Dvija Janma Vishesham Praptavata. In spite of going through so many janmas in various living being forms, right? Through some kind of fructification of a little bit of punya, I happen to have acquired this Manusha Janma, and here I am trying to actually do something and progress and actually achieve the Purushartha of Moksha, which which is actually the purpose of a human life, right? So in this Savanyavata Sankalpa, you are asking for all these papams to be, exhausted, etc., right? But the point here is, as Ahankara, there is always scope for something not accomplished, something else needs to be done. So Ahankara is Apurnaha only, right? So therefore, struggling to make Ahankara Purnaha is the biggest blunder which we have been committing. Therefore, I should change the very direction of the journey, use the Ahankara, right, to shift the identity from Ahankara to Atma. For this Ahankara, for shifting Ahankara is required, but I have to make an inquiry, right, and crossover finally. For shifting, for inquiry, for studying, all of that I need Ahankara, right? But then I need to shift my the claiming of the I towards the Atma. I, the Atma, I am Nirguna, right? And I am always Purnaha, right? Ahankara is Savikaraha, whereas Atma is Nirvikaraha, right? Thus use the Ahankara to transcend the Ahankara. This is the intelligent use of Ahankara. And after transcending the Ahankara and claiming that I am gunaateetaha Atma, right? Coming back and again, right? Using Ahankara is only for transactions. Having transcended, right? And then claiming gunaateetaha Atma without any stress, without any problems, right? You just live, do your transactions to the best, but you don't have extreme ragadveshas because you have gone past the gunaateetaha, right? So transcending this is very, very important. So use the ahankara to express the purnatvam of the Atma, right? And this is called Jivan Muktihi. It is enjoying the ahankara to express the purnatvam and to share the purnatvam with rest of the humanity. This is the essence of the shloka that we saw. Just give me 1 second. So this is the shloka that we entered last week. Nanyam gunebhya kartaram, nanya gunebhya kartaram, yada drashtanu pashyati, yada drashtanu pashyati, gunebhyascha param veti, gunebhyascha param veti. Madbhavam sodhigacchati, madbhavam sodhigacchati. So, drashta, first line, drashta means the Jnana Yoga seeker who has completed Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga and made himself fit, and who has understood the limitations of ahankara also. And that sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, he is endowed with sadhana chatushtaya sampatti that we saw in Introduction to Vedanta, right? Drashta, sadhana chatushtaya sampanna drashta, gunebhyah kartaram anyam na anupashyati. He doesn't see any karta, right, other than ahankara. Basically, there's a double negative language here, right? If you put it in a positive language, it will be different. So he doesn't see any other than ahankara means he sees ahankara alone as karta, bhokta and jnata. And Atma comes under akarta, abhokta and ajnata. So he sees ahankara as the karta, and that is not enough. Gunebhyascha param veti, and he sees what is that the Atma is beyond the three gunas. Here the three gunas are what represent the ahankara, because ahankara is basically what completely defined by the three gunas, right? So the one who understands the Atma, right, which is beyond the ahankara, right, not spatially or time wise, you have to discern Atma as being different or totally different from the ahankara, which is the ever permanent one, right? So param means, right, they are together. Param means touched by ahankara, whereas Atma, which is touched by ahankara, is still untouched, uncontaminated by ahankara. Exactly like a movie screen where there is a movie going on, right? Assume that there is a scene from Mahabharata where the wax house, the wax palace is under fire, right? And it is burning. Now the screen is not burnt, right? The screen is absolutely safe, strong and secure, right? So this is what in Gita also we saw in 224, chapter 224th verse. Achedyoyam adahyoyam akledoyam ashoshyeva nitya sarvagatus gatastanuhu achaloyam sanatanaha. We saw this when we were defining Atma in chapter 2, right? So param means untouched by the events that happen to the in ahankara. If you remember the 5 capsules of the Vedanta, I have listed the 5 capsules at the end of the slides. You can take a look at it. The 4th capsule says, I am not affected by anything that takes place in the material world and in the material body. What is the first capsule? I am of the nature of eternal and all-pervading consciousness. Second is, I am the only source of permanent peace, security, and happiness. By my mere presence, I give life to the material body, and through the body, I experience the material universe. Fourth is, I am not affected by anything that takes place in the material world and in the material body. By forgetting my real nature, I convert life into a struggle, and by remembering my nature, I convert life into a sport or entertainment. This is worthwhile getting by heart. Swamiji has so beautifully encapsulated this in exactly 5 capsules. So I was saying the 4th capsule, what does it say? I am never affected by anything that happens in the material world, right? So I am untouched. That is called Param Veti, the one who claims, the one who knows the Atma. Is nothing but claiming, I am the gunaateetaha Atma. And once a person comes to that, madbhavam sa adhigacchati. He has attained oneness with Paramatma. Madbhava means Paramatma bhavam. Brahma bhavam sa adhigacchati. Right? So, what does he mean here? A very interesting thing. I am a mixture of ahankara and Atma. Ignorant person is one who claims ahankara as himself. Jnani is one who claims Atma as oneself. So, the meaning of the word I is ahankara in the case of Ajnani, right? And is Atma in the case of Jnani. So, every individual is a mixture of both, but the Jnani claims the Atma component, right? And because of that, what is the difference? When I claim ahankara as myself, the relationship with God is dasaha aham asmi. Ishwarasya dasaha aham asmi. Right? Because I have ahankara, I am attached to the body, mind, sense complex. So, dasaha aham asmi. Right? As ahankara, I am a miserable small individual in this world. Right? Whereas what happens when the shift in thought, thinking happens as a jnani, I am the Atma. Right? Ishvara is also Atma, Jiva is also Atma. So I am the Atma behind the Jagat, Jiva and Ishvara. So from Dasoham Bhavana, it will shift to Saha Aham, Soham, right? So we refer to that as Soham, right? That Atma, I am, right? Soham Kshetrajnam Chapi Mam Vidhi, right? We saw that, right? So he no more looks upon himself as an individual in the world. The whole thing is reversed. I am not an individual in the world. On the other hand, the whole world is nothing but a small dot. And all these galaxies, Shankaracharya says, Budbuda iva, like bubbles, they just raise and fall, right? In me. I am the big ocean. And mayeva sakalam jatam, mai sarvam pratishtitam in Kaivalya Upanishad, a very beautiful shloka comes, right? So, dasoham to soham is one huge transformation, right? It's a big transformation, right? And the second one is, I am in the world to world is in me, right? That is the other shift, right? So, dasoham to soham, and from I am in the world to the world is in me, right? And Jnani is always Atma Pradhana all the time, right? He uses the Ahankara to do all his transactions, like Lord Krishna said in the 5th chapter, Pashyan, Shrinvan, Sprishan, Jigran, Ashnan, Gachan, Swapan, Shwasan. Whether I am seeing, whether I am hearing, whether I am smelling, right? All of that, I know that I'm using my ahankara to do all that. And just like Tambura Shruti in the side, I always know that I am the Atma behind the ahankara and I am the eternal, immortal Atma, right? So, remembering the 5th capsule that I just mentioned, by forgetting my real nature, that is the Atma, and falsely claiming I am Ahankara, I convert this very life into a burden, but by remembering my real nature, I convert life into a blessing. And the whole journey of life is an entertainment. The shift is very, very difficult, comes with years of, upasana, meditation, then Vedantic meditation, etc. But worthwhile, because FIR reduction will happen in the process. Frequency, intensity, and recovery period after a emotional turbulence will start coming down, or emotional impact will start coming down, right? Continuing. गुणानेतानतीत्यत्रीन् गुणानेतानतीत्यत्रीन् देहि देहसमुद्भवान् देहि देहसमुद्भवान् जन्म मृत्युजरा दुःखैः जन्म मृत्युजरा दुःखैः विमुक्तो मृतमश्नुते Vimukto mritamashnute. You would have noticed that almost every shloka has 5 stars here, because they're all very, very important shlokas worth getting by heart. Okay. So the benefit of the shift in the identity, right? Benefit of shift of self-identity. So Dehi. So this spiritual seeker who has successfully used Jnana Yoga, consisting of Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam, right? Obviously, this is not a crash program which you can do over a weekend workshop or something. It is a lifelong struggle, sometimes a struggle across multiple janmas also, because to get interested in Bhagavad-gita and even to start attending classes itself is a very big punyam. In fact, I'm reminded that in Gita Mahatmyam, right, all these things are stated. And Swamiji always used to remind us that there is a belief, right, in the tradition, that if you listen to Gita, you must definitely listen to Gita Mahatmyam, which will come after the 18th chapter, because even whatever little you have listened and imbibed, you will see all the benefits will accrue if you listen to the Gita Mahatmyam. So in case you have other students who have sort of missed some classes and are catching up with the recording also, you can mention to them saying that Gita Mahatmyam is absolutely important. And of course it is far away, we are only in the 14th chapter, but I remembered, so I thought I should tell you. So obviously that punyam that we are doing to even listen to that, because not everybody will get interested in this subject, right? The very fact that we have that interest in Shravanam, forget Mananam and Nididhyasana, that itself is because of the punyam accumulated over several janmas, right? Otherwise, as Swamiji says, if you say Gita, they will ask, which Gita is it? My neighbor Gita, right? Because they can't even remember that it is Gita, right? So this is a very, very important, life transforming, useful scripture, and which comes because of accumulation of aneka janma punya, right? And even after coming to Gita, right, consistent and systematic study for a long time, right? Because you need to do, see, the minimum, I'm supposed to be doing this at a much faster pace. Swamiji takes about 6.5 years to complete this course, right? Same weekly one class, he takes 6.5 years. Because I'm using slides and, because of that, I can, quickly recap and all, I'm compressing it to about, say, 3 years. So if you don't have the patience, and if you're not able to go through it in a consistent and systematic way, from like introduction to Vedanta, chapter 1, chapter 2, etc., and completely, you can join at any time, but still, if you don't go through it completely, then again what will happen? You have not got the complete picture of it, right? So even for that, you need more punyam, right? So, and after that, for you to be able to recollect the teaching and even share, say, with a friend or somebody else in the family, that requires concentration and revision, etc., right? And it requires time. So this whole thing is a long journey, requires a lot of punya and sincere effort, right? This path is not very easy, right? So, but then the benefits are many, as Krishna says, and also in Gita Mahatmya, we will see the benefits, what all happens, etc. Right? So, what happens is generally we are able to listen in class if we have done reasonable punyam, and we are able to understand what is happening. But the practical aspects of our life prevent us from implementing this in day-to-day life. The minute we complete the class and go, we have, as a grihastha, right? We have 20 other problems knocking on the door, and we immediately get into it. As Swamiji says, the minute the chappal is on, the class is gone, right? So that is what happens. It's a practical problem. So every day, keeping some time to remember the teaching and just understanding or reading the meaning of one or two shlokas and recollecting some of the important aspects behind the shloka will help us in the long run, because it will help us abide in our higher nature when we are going through difficult situations, right? So this requires long Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam, right? Very important. And Lord Krishna says, Etan Treen Gunan Atitya, having transcended the three gunas, that is the Ahankara, and landed on the gunaateetaha Atma, right? So that is what he's referring to here. So if you are in the three gunas, gunaha deha samudbhavan, then which is responsible for punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, right? So the word deha here means punarjanma, samudbhava means karanam, is the karanam, the attachment towards the ahankara and the strong raga dvesha is the karanam for punarjanma, is what Krishna is talking about here, right? So therefore, constant sense of insecurity is caused by the strong raga dvesha, and therefore the life becomes a struggle and a continuous cycle of janma, jara, janma, mrityu, jara, janma is birth, mrityu is death, right? Jara is old age, right? And dukkaihi, all kinds of problems, difficult situations, sadness, etc. Right? So Jnani is the one who is able to get out of all these issues, whether it is insecurity or any other issues associated with the ahankara, right? So janma, mrityu, jara, right? And what else, right? So all these three, ahankara is not free of janma, mrityu and jara, as well as sorrow, right? If the person is able to get associated with the Atma, right, then you will be able to, as Swamiji says, neighborize all your problems, right? Like your neighbor has some problem, what will your attitude be? Exactly like that, if you associate with the Atma, if we associate with the Atma, then we are able to see the ahankara's problems as neighbor's problems. So Swamiji uses this beautiful word, neighborization, right? So if you are able to neighborize the problems, then you are a Jivan Mukta, right? So then you can make your ahankara a neighbor as part of the creation, and you are Jivan Mukta. So in this, if you remember, we saw this excellent shloka in the 14th verse of the second chapter. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkata agama payino nityaha tam stitikshasva bharata. These things will be there at ahankara level. Distance yourself with objectivity, right? So the solution is in the neighborization only, right? Claim the immortal Atma, which is what we refer to as mokshaha, vimuktaha, and that is called Jivan Muktihi. And thereafter, when the prarabdha gets over, the body is ready to go. And Jnani doesn't have any complaints or regrets. He's ready to give up the body to Ishvara at any time. Ishvara gave me a body for self-realization. I have accomplished the goal. The body's purpose has been put to use, right? It has been served. So I returned the body to God with a small note of gratitude. I have accomplished the mission of life. Thank you, right? I am immortal. Let millions of bodies come and go. I am the Sarva Adhishtanam. Thus the body is handed over. After that, the Jnani doesn't continue at all. But the Ahankara, Ajnani, he will continue forever, right? So the Jnani's journey ends there, and that is called Videha Mukti, without Punarjanma. So it's a very, very important shloka, this particular shloka, right? And so the abidance in the higher nature is called Jivan Mukti, right? And now Arjuna is going to ask, so what are the emotional benefits? Arjuna is going to ask. And Lord Krishna is again going to speak about the benefits, right? As a Jivan Mukta, what are the benefits? And after death, he will attain Videha Mukti, or he will merge into Ishvara. All the karmas are destroyed. So Arjuna is curious to know what will be the life of such a gunaateeta Jnani, right? In the second chapter, very interesting, this Jnani was called what? Sthita Prajnaha. The emotional benefits were talked about at the end of second chapter, verse 54 to 72. Jnani was called Sthita Prajna. In the 12th chapter, the Jnani went through 5 levels, right? And we call there, Krishna called the Jnani Parabhaktaha, right? The same Jnani was called Parabhaktaha. And the emotional benefits were mentioned in 12th chapter from verse 13 to 20. Adveshta Sarvabhutanam Maitra Karuna Evacha. Now the very same Sthita Prajna, the very same Parabhakta is now renamed as Gunaateetaha, right? And what are the benefits that he will have? How will he confront tough situations in life? And that is the question Arjuna wants to ask in the following shloka, which we will just read. Arjuna Uvacha Arjuna Uvacha Kairlingai Strin Gunanetan Kairlingai Strin Gunanetan Atito Bhavati Prabho Atito Bhavati Prabho Kimacharak Katam Chaitan Kimacharak Katam Chaitan Trin Gunanati Vartate Trin Gunanati Vartate. So Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna is asking a question, right? Basically 3 questions based on Lord Krishna's teaching. First question is, what is the internal subjective indication by which a person can know whether I have become a Gunaateeta Jnani or not? So this is very personal, internal subjective indication for a Gita student who has been practicing Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. I'm sure all of you are curious. So as even he goes through the Sadhanani program, right? What are the internal indications named Lingam? Right? Lingam means the internal indications here. So Kair Lingaihi Etana Gunan Atitaha. So is the name of Gunaateeta Jnani, and he is called Jnana Nishtaha. So if he has pushed the Jnanam to the subconscious level, if it is in the conscious level, we are only aware. It has to be in the subconscious level. That is Jnana Nishta, right? So Kairlingaihi Treen Gunan, who has descended the 3 gunas and is Atitaha, right? And Kimachara, what are the external indicators which express in the form of his regular conduct in day-to-day transactions? How will he conduct himself while transacting with ordinary people? In everybody's life, right, there will be 1 or 2 occasions when you can actually observe, right, this. So basically the person who is a Gita student has to be more and more aware of the mind. So we call it mindful, right? When he is mindful, right, he knows exactly where his raga dvesha is playing out, right? So therefore a person who has jnana nishta, right, constantly he is abiding in his higher nature. So he would be always aware of this aspect of his higher nature, right? So the type of, if you see, right, everybody, now we must be very careful. It can be a sannyasi, it can be a grihastha ashrama person. It does not matter. The ashrama does not matter. The jnani is not equal to sannyasi, or the jnani or ajnani is not equal to grihastha. We must remember this. A jnani is basically the mindset, right, of the person, which is deciding whether the person is a jnani or not, right? So sannyasi can have his own problems also, right? And he may not be telling outside, right? So because of his own prarabdha, it might be manifesting in different ways. So this is the external indicators also by which the others can know. Visible indicators, right, and invisible indicators. So invisible ones are ones which are known only to me, right, because they are internal conditions. So the second question is visible indicators, right, is the second one. So that is the second question. And the third question is katancha etan treen gunan ativartate. So how does a jnani reach such a position? Natural curiosity. What are the internal indicators? What are the external visible indicators? And how does a jnani reach such a position? How did a jnani or a jnana nishta become a jnana nishta, right? Because it is a very big enviable thing, right? Because long years of practice he must have done. One normal sports itself, for taking a winning position, so many years of practice, parishrama must have gone in, right? So that is the natural curiosity that Arjuna has. So this is his question, right? So Arjuna asked this question, katancha etan treen gunan ativartate. How did the jnani transcend that saguna ahankara, I, and land on the gunaateeta Atma? How did he achieve this? So katancha etan, right? So very, very important. So Lord Krishna now gives the answer. श्रीभगवानुवाच श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रकाशं च प्रवृत्तिं च प्रकाशं च प्रवृत्तिं च मोहमेव च पाण्डव मोहमेव च पाण्डव न द्वेष्टि सम्प्रवृत्तानि न द्वेष्टि सम्प्रवृत्तानि न निवृत्तानि काङ्क्षति न निवृत्तानि काङ्क्षति. Again, very, very important verse. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, right? He wants to talk about the internal indicator with respect to his attitude, his own body, mind, sense complex, right? Because this jnani knows I have an ahankara, I'm a mixture of Atma and ahankara, and the ahankara consists of body, mind, which is trigunatmika, has all the three gunas, and it is subject to CAD, changes, attributes, and division, right? And they are continuously changing, and our aim is to keep them predominantly sattvic. But in spite of our efforts, it may not be possible. There may be fluctuations, and therefore he is willing to accept that some slips will happen, but he continues with tenacity. And the refinement of ahankara is a lifelong process, right? Sometimes we go forward and slip back a little bit, right? It can happen. One day you're very happy, right? Next day you might flare up and you could have a depression because of that, saying that, oh, I'm a Gita student and I flared up. It can happen, right? So a jnani understands anatma and he refines them. But he knows that he can never, you cannot maintain perfection all the time, right? It is not possible, right? Because Atma alone is changelessly and eternally perfect. Ahankara has its ups and downs, and therefore Jnani is very objective. It doesn't react violently for the change in the gunas. Therefore he says prakasham cha. When sattva guna is dominant, he enjoys that, right? But sometimes sattva guna is not dominant, right? So he understands the mind, right? So Pujya Swamiji apparently says, right, Dayananda Saraswati Swamiji says, be kind to your mind also. Try to improve your mind, but don't be extremely harsh also, over harsh also, right? When body is weak, mind also can be weak. For instance, you are overworked at office. When you come home, right, you might fire somebody in the house, or you might take your irritation on somebody, and then you go into a remorse also, because you feel, oh, I'm on this Gita journey, I'm doing Nididhyasanam, I'm doing Vedantic meditation, and I shouted, and then start hating that. So don't be so difficult with the mind also, is what Pujya Swamiji says, right? Don't be harsh, right? So therefore understand and try and be alert. This alertness is what is very, very important, and that is why sometimes they say maintain a Vedantic journal or a diary also, right? So objectivity, body, mind, sense complex is the, with respect to body, mind, sense complex is the internal indication. So similarly, pravrittim cha rajoguna. Rajoguna is dominant, right? So it is highly useful. You can do a lot of work, pravritti, but sometimes rajoguna is less dominant. It will fluctuate. Tamoguna also sometimes is dominant, and there will be some fluctuation, right? So moham evacha. Moham here means tamoguna, because moham is technically delusion, right? So all these will fluctuate. Anatma itself will fluctuate. Learn to accept that as a fact, and not dveshti. He doesn't hate when it is not favorable, and he doesn't get attached to it when it is favorable also, because favorable condition is subject to arrival and departure. Similarly, unfavorable also. So don't have either raga or dvesha towards your own mind. So some pravrittani, when they come, nat dveshti, he doesn't hate. Nivrittani, when the favorable situation goes away, na kankshati, right? He is not worried about that also. They are all in, basically all the sense organs are in extremely fine condition when we are young, but as we start growing older, one by one starts failing, right? Whether it is karmendriya or jnanendriya, right? So learning to accept that also with objectivity, right? That is referred to as raga dvesha atitatvam. Basically you cross over, right? Avoidance of attachment and hatred is the gunaateetatvam with regard to the internal condition, right? So, O Arjuna, he does not hate brightness, activity or delusion. Basically, sattva, rajo or tamoguna as they arise, nor does he desire, or as they withdraw. He doesn't have strong likes and dislikes. Continuing. Udasinavadasinah Udasinavadasinah Gunairyo na vichalyate Gunairyo na vichalyate Gunavartanta itteva Gunavartanta itteva Yovatishtati nengate Yovatishtati nengate. Udasinatvat asinaha. He is as though indifferent to body, mind, sense complex. He is not basically indifferent. He is as though indifferent, means he does whatever is required to keep them fit, but he doesn't get attached to them. That means when they fail him sometime also, he doesn't overreact, right? So all serious Vedantic students will face, right? Normal person, whenever there is a situation, they might react and they might forget. But serious Vedantic students will have another problem. They react to the situation, and when the situation is over, throughout the day, oh, I am a Gita student, I should not have reacted that way, right? So you will keep having that kind of feeling also, right? So all serious Vedantic students suffer from a deeper samsara of this form. Jnani is one who understands this, right? And he understands that I should not have reacted. I've reacted. I'll note it. I'll be careful next time. But let me understand the mind and be careful, right? So it doesn't mean that throughout the day he'll say, oh, okay, I reacted. But in general, and you don't call up the person and say, I'm sorry, and etc. And spend your whole day reviewing over it. But acknowledge that you have reacted and tell your mind, yeah, I need to be aware next time and move on, right? So that is udasina bhavaha gunaihi yona vichalyate. Because of the fluctuation of guna, he doesn't react too much also, right? Then what does he say? Gunaha vartante ityeva tishtati. Mind also has got its weaker moments. My aim is FIR reduction. My aim is not FIR abolition, right? So I'm not here to completely remove the emotional disturbances. That is not possible, right? Fluctuations will be there at the body, mind, sense complex level because of the trigunas, right? Weaker moments will be there, but our aim is to reduce such situations, right? So guna vartante ityeva. With this awareness, yaha avatishtati. He tries to avoid reaction and subsequent brooding also, right? Na ingate. He is not shaken by any of these, and when I'm shaken, what happens is I forget my higher nature, right? So at that time, I should just withdraw to the green room, as Swamiji says, and practice nididhyasana. Sit quietly, try to cool down, calm down, abide in our higher nature, and use the, as Swamiji says, neighborize your ahankara, look at it from a distance, right? And be considerate your own mind also, right? So again, another very, very important verse. Continuing. समदुःखसुखस्वस्थः समदुःखसुखस्वस्थः समलोष्टाश्मकाञ्चनः समलोष्टाश्मकाञ्चनः तुल्यप्रिया प्रियो धीरः तुल्यप्रिया प्रियो धीरः तुल्यनिन्दात्मसंस्तुतिः. So in the previous shloka, Krishna talked about the reduction of emotional disturbances by using the word na ingate. He is not mentally shaken by unfavorable events. And in the 6th chapter, Lord Krishna used the word Guruna api dukkena. Even when the event is shocking for all other people, shattering for all other people, this person is able to take with balance. So the FIR reduction is indicated by the word nengate, right? Now he is putting it, Krishna is putting it in a positive language, enjoyment of triple C, calmness, cheerfulness, and confidence mentally, right? And all this is because of what? Swastaha. Swastaha means indicates the higher self, Atma, right? Which does not have any problem, which does not have any karma, which is not affected by anything, right? So as the 4th capsule says, I am not affected by any event that happens in the material world. I am unshaken from the standpoint of Atma, right? So Swasmin Swarupe Gunaateeta Atmani Sthitaha means he abides, right, in his higher nature. Gunaateeta Atma, right? So it is not sitting over Atma, but abiding in the higher nature, never forgetting the higher nature, right? So an actor, for instance, may identify with the role and he may actually cry for the situation, but whatever he does, however realistic he acts, he knows, he remembers his higher nature, which is his real nature, which is the actor, right? So here, to abide in the higher nature, there is only one method, which is nididhyasanam or Vedantic meditation has to be practiced. If the actor forgets his nature, right? So he'll have to go to the green room and get some counseling. Similarly, here also once in a while, we have to withdraw from worldly transaction, quietly go to a place, right? In the 13th chapter, Krishna said, Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, go to seclusion. All the time, don't be moving with people, friends, etc. spend some time in seclusion without your mobile, without any of the computer, laptop, anything, right? Just stay quiet and abide, remember the teachings, right? So I have to give time to remember that this ahankara is a costume and the body is going to be an instrument for a small time, maybe few decades, right? Before the body was not there, after some time the body is not going to be there. Vasansi jirnani yata vihaya, right? So I have to spend some time in Atma Nishta, right? I can be Brahma Nishta and Swastaha. Once that Swastha comes, Ahankara Vasana in the subconscious mind becomes feebler and feebler, and it is this subconscious Ahankara which generally makes us react to situation. So if the subconscious mind has the Atma, right, and we are abiding in that, then the reaction starts coming down, right? So we will not thoughtlessly react, and Nididhyasanam alone can help in handling the subconscious mind. So thus gunaateetaha has achieved it. Therefore samadukka sukha, when prarabdham brings favorable and unfavorable situations, he is able to withstand the impact and maintain the poise or balance. Samaloshtaashma kanchanaha. Loshta means a clod of earth, right? And asma is stone and kanchanaha means gold. Samaha, he does not have a strong attachment to either of these, right? Because likes also will create sorrow, dislikes will also create sorrow in two different ways, right? So a liked object will create sorrow because when it goes away, you will have problem, right? And a disliked object, when it comes, you are going to have a problem. Therefore, a jnani practices diluting the likes and dislikes by remembering that emotional dependence on them is a risk, right? It is like a statutory warning. Likes and dislikes are risky. Therefore, right from Karma Yoga, this jnani practices nididhyasanam and continuously dilutes all the raga dvesha. Therefore, I should not desperately depend on them. It should just be a preference, right? That dilution of raga dvesha happens gradually through nididhyasanam. I'll stop here. We'll see the rest in the next class. So this is the 5 capsules of Vedanta. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. One second. Just yeah. Are there any hands raised? Okay. Suvarna, you have some question?
Namaskaram, ma'am.
Namaskaram.
I wanted to know that book's name where the stories of Maharshis was there. You mentioned previously.
In the last class, can you just tell me which class? I will go and locate it and I will definitely send it to you. You can drop me.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Kartika Purnami Shubhakankshalu, ma'am.
Okay. This verse I haven't completed. So there is a question here. The question is, please explain Samaloshta I'll do it in the next class because I had to, close this. That's why I couldn't complete it. I'll take up this verse and continue, right? Next class I will explain. Are there any other questions? Okay, no other questions. So we'll meet next week. Hari Om.